Hey guys, it's Al, and welcome back to my channel. I'm actually going to be doing something really different right now. I've never done anything like this, but I'm being called to do it, and it's going to sound really bizarre to a lot of you, and so I'm going to just preface by saying that I get that. But for whatever reason, I'm being tasked with this as part of my initiation, so I'm just going to do it. So my name is Al Arevalo. I'm the son of Claudia Maria Arevalo, hija de Maruca del Carmen Marroquín Caballeros, familiares de Francisco Marroquín y Maria Caballeros, descendant of Francisco Marroquín, the Archbishop of Guatemala. And I am apparently no more than a descendant of his. And what I'm supposed to do right now is kind of just go with instinct on this and kind of state what it is that I'm all about and where my path has taken me. So as many of you know, I've been on a spiritual mission for about a year now, where I was called to leave my old life and to walk away from what I'd built and rebuilt and take a chance with the divine and go out into the world and see it for what it really was, and that it would challenge everything about me, and that it would change everything I ever thought about life and what I thought I was doing in this plane. And so I decided that if I was going to trust anybody, it would be the divine. So for the past year, I left New Orleans, where I'm from, and I moved to Los Angeles in the middle of COVID, with no money, no connections, no place to live, and I ended up on the streets of LA. And the process was for me to navigate my way through this uncharted territory. I'm a bit of a princess, so anybody who knows me knows that that's very true. And so I was to basically let the ego die and kind of go through what it is like to be lost in the world, to be forgotten and forsaken, and to completely immerse myself into what that experience would be like. And so the task was to move to LA, and I was supposed to stay with a friend who at the last minute, of course, as divine will would have it, pulled out, and so I ended up on the streets of Skid Row in Los Angeles. I didn't know anybody, I didn't have any connections, and I couldn't call anybody, so I ended up at a rescue mission on San Pedro, in the middle of Skid Row, of course. And I got in just in time before everything got shut down. It was like, I think, the day of where the shutdowns came through California. And I just barely got in. And it was very, very oppressive, I thought. But as I was walking into the door, I tell the story in my articles on LinkedIn that, because I was supposed to chronicle all of the adventures that was happening, which, adventure would be a very, very, very loose term for what I was going through, but my fears, overcoming my fears, and so I was supposed to chronicle it on like one media outlet, and so I chose LinkedIn. Anyway, so in LinkedIn I tell the story about how I was walking into this mission, and as I walked in, the divine just ever so slightly said into my ear, if you will, "You are absolutely protected, unless you think you're not, in which case you're on your own," and then kind of pushed me into the door. And I was like, "Oh, shit." And so I walked into this place, and it was a bit like a prison, but a very well-run prison. This particular location was ideal for who I am. The woman who ran it is incredibly gifted and very loving and very spiritual. And so all of her guys, as she calls it, and all of her girls, because there's a men's side and a girl's side, were very, very loved. She loves them, right? Like, she genuinely cares about them, and she runs this place to the T. So I go in, and I am a little bit, I would say that I would have been scared had it not been for what the divine specifically had told me as I walked in. I was like, okay, because I knew what it meant. It meant that I'm protected, that I'm safe as can be, more protected than probably anybody else in the world at the moment, and that all I needed to do was know that, and then nothing could happen to me. So I walked in, and of course, I had what I would describe as like my little Prada outfit with my little laptop, and my little bag, my little gay ass walking into this fucking place. And sure enough, everybody left me alone. I just knew that the divine had my back, and I was on mission. And it kind of goes into what I'm going to explain into my story in a moment. But I'm just supposed to navigate through this according to what I'm being driven to what I'm prompted to say. Okay. Not that they're telling me what to say, but more like there's specific things that are being shown to me at the moment, which anybody who's very spiritual understands what I'm saying. It's not like we're crazy. It's just it's like prompts, like images that pop up in our third eye, and so then we go with that train of thought. Anyway, so moral story is that I ran into this place, and it was incredibly well run, and I felt actually incredibly safe. And so although everybody kept looking at me like I was, they thought I was an undercover cop. And so I was like, okay, I'll go with that. Yeah, that works. I'm an undercover cop. I'm an arc. And I was like, okay, that could kind of be dangerous, but again, God had my back. So I was like, all right, now I'm going to go with this. And so I slept on the mat on the ground for the first week. Now remember, I was a bartender right up until this, so I came from money. I'm not used to having to being in that situation. Although I was, the divine was very clear that that's the path I had to go. I had to go down that way, and so I was like, okay. So I'm on the mat, I'm on the ground, and I'm holding my bag all night long, and I'm very cautious and stuff like that. And so about 2 days in, I just finally looked around. I was like, you know what? I'm being ridiculous. These people are fucking feeding me. They're giving me a place to stay, and I'm like, I'm gonna put my exchange in. So I volunteered. And so immediately, like I think it was the next day later, like 3 or 4 days in, they needed some volunteers to clean the bathrooms at the homeless shelter that I was staying at. And so I was cleaning the shit and stuff off the ground and all the crap that was going on. When you discard an entire population, they don't really know how to take care of themselves, much less take care or be grateful for the gifts that they're being given in the shelter. So, and I did it, and the whole time I'm like, Jesus scrubbed feet. At least I'm not scrubbing feet. I'm just scrubbing toilets. And so I was like, okay. And so I kind of went about my day. And then, of course, it was a lockdown. So you weren't supposed to go anywhere. And of course, I'm like, I knew I could see through this whole fucking thing from the very get-go, right? That's part of the gift of being part of God's little army. And so I was like, I'm going to the fucking beach. Fuck this shit. So I grabbed my little mask and I got on the bus. And I went down to the beach every day after I'd done all the cleaning and all that stuff and maintenance. And I did this for a while. And then suddenly something happened where there was a guy who was part-time, stay there only when, like, he was a trucker. And he would come through the city and he would stay there in order to save money, right? Well, he came down with COVID. And not only did he come down with COVID, but he actually passed away from it. And so they locked us down. And we were the first mission to get it. And so, of course, we became like the whole, like, oh, we knew this was going to happen, blah, blah, blah. But yet, remember, the homeless population was the last segment of the world population that got this whole fucking thing. So if it was us, it kind of went ass backwards, you know what I mean? So we knew that it was going to come down on us anyway. So then when it played out, sure enough, they made an example of this particular mission. And they made it sound like we didn't know. The lady who ran it didn't know what she was doing. Of course, she did. And so I'm sitting here and I'm witnessing all of this, and it became very clear to me that I was basically essentially a reporter for the divine, and I was just supposed to observe it, not get involved, and just kind of watch and follow the process of what it's like to get lost in one of these situations and what the world really looks like from this angle. And so I was perfectly safe, and so I was like, all right. So they lock us down, and the next thing I know, I can't leave the dorm room, and so all of the guys are now all stuck in the same room. There's like 52 people in one big area, like it's like a jail, only safer and really nicer. And I was okay. And then sure enough, they came and they said, "You have it. You're going to go to quarantine." And so they quarantined everybody, regardless of whether we had it or not. And then they came to me and they said, "No, you have it. You're going to die. Just get comfortable and do what you need to do." That's kind of the way that they inferred it. They were like, "Well, we don't know what's going to happen to you, but more than likely you're not going to make it. So just say goodbye to blah blah blah." I've heard this before in my life in other situations. I've crossed the death doorway for countless times at this point, and it's just something I don't fear. So I have the same attitude that I had when I was 16 when it first happened. I was just like, fuck y'all, I'm going to be just fine. And I was. I put on Britney Spears and I danced some little gay ass in this little private hotel room, and I was super happy. I was like, woo, woo, party, party. Because my perspective was different. It was God's perspective. It wasn't like I was afraid of anything. If I would have died, it would have been just like, okay, well, here comes the reset. I guess we're going to have to start all over again. Well, I guess, now we know better. That was my mentality. And I'm not downplaying the people who are passing away, because this is a disease and it is things that, it's a realignment, and people aren't always able to make the realignment, and so it's a serious thing. But I'm saying from my perspective, right? So I go into it and I'm just like dancing to Britney Spears, and I'm just like having a good old time, and I'm just like cha-cha-cha-cha, and like all this shit, and I'm gonna look at this beautiful sunset every night out of my window, and I was just in heaven, right? I was like, okay, but this is where I'm going. I'm going out in style. 2 minutes later, oh, we're sorry, you never had it. We're discharging you. But we're not discharging you to where you were. We're discharging you to this transitional facility somewhere out in the boonies, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Sorry. And they threw me out with my shit, and I had maybe 4 hours to pack, and then they threw me into South Central Los Angeles, into a transitional house for people who were drug addicted or that were just out of jail, and they threw my ass in there, and there was 6 people to a room in the middle of quarantine, and there was nothing I can do about it. And so I just kind of looked at it from the perspective of, okay, I get it. This is part of the process. He wants to see what's really going down. And so I kind of looked at it from a reporter standpoint, and so I dealt with it, and I just kept remembering what he said, and people were like really, really angry, and there was fights, and things were being stolen and all this crap, and so I had to pawn my laptop, which it killed me. But it was a test of my integrity. Could I survive something materialistic and just get rid of it in order to survive? And so I did. And it had all of my work and everything I've ever done. I had saved everything, and I had to give it away. And it broke me for a minute, and I bounced back. And then I kept going with the mission. And so then what ended up happening is it was horrible because I couldn't sleep. There was this people that would just kept playing music all night long. And so it just was driving me nuts because I couldn't rest. So every day I would leave when I was done with breakfast, and I would get the hell out of Dodge, and I would go and I would walk all day long for about 4 months actually. 4 months of straight walking all over the city of Los Angeles, just walking by myself in the heat with no money. Couldn't get food stamps at the time. Everything was locked down. I had no cash, no nothing. And I felt like I was supposed to break. And instead I did the complete opposite. I just spent the time talking to the divine and figuring out my life purpose. And I was in gratitude, and I just lived my life in gratitude for those 4 months. Well, sure enough, I was at the breaking point where I just couldn't handle it anymore. This one guy was just, like he was doing things on the down low and stuff like that, and just like being really scuzzy and just making my energy. It was affecting my energy, and I was like, I got to get out of here. And sure enough, it was a moment where a guy tried to attack me because I was gay right outside of the thing. And I remembered what God had said to me, and so I literally looked at the guy straight in his face, and I was like, because physical confrontation has never bothered me. I don't know if you guys know anything about my story, but it hasn't been an easy life. And so I just look at physical confrontation like, if it's between me and you, you're the one that's going to die. It's not going to be me. And so I just looked at him dead in the eyes. I didn't react to him. And I don't know what it did to him, but him and his friend ended up like running away from me. And not running away, but like they just backed off and they walked away. And I just looked at him like, okay. And my adrenaline was pumping, and I was ready for the fist fight, like you do. And I just remember the divine said, "See, all right, well, good, that's good." And the next day, my counselor heard about it, and she's like, "We're getting you out of here." And so she decided to put me into this thing called Project Room Key in Los Angeles, which is for people like me who are super asthmatic and that can die from respiratory infections and all that stuff. And so they put me into this hotel that they found. And I was kind of hoping I was going to be in LA, but instead it was in Van Nuys, and this place was fucking amazeballs. It was incredibly amazing. It was the way that you do run these type of centers, and it was in alignment with what the mission was, which was to help people that are suffering through this coronavirus and this whole pandemic, and it's supposed to help them get them back on their feet. So I was put in this place, and it was like a bunch of people that you would be throwaways, but they were all running successfully. Everybody was getting help. Everybody was finding apartments. Everybody was getting everything, the right thing. Well, lo and behold, I think it was about 5 months in, I'm in heaven, I'm in my own room, everything's perfect, everything's lovely, and I'm working on mission, and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm writing articles and talking about all the holes I encountered and all the different places that we broke down, because, like I said in the article, it's not that we were ill-prepared, it was the fact that we were prepared for major disaster for short periods of time, but not long period of time of major worldwide disaster. So it wasn't like anybody was to blame, it was just like shit that was going down. And I was watching it, and so I was reporting it to the people on LinkedIn, and those viewers were obviously doing stuff with it, or not viewers, the readers, and then the divine was monitoring the entire situation, and everything was good. Well, for some reason, out of this past, I guess it was in January, they renewed all the contracts for all of these places, except the one place that I was at. So I was like, fuck, well, we're going to roll with it, and so I rolled with it. And I knew everything would be okay. So what I didn't realize is that I was at the end of my mission, and that I had done the work that I needed to do, but that I was also still part of initiations. And for those of you who don't know what spiritual initiations are, they're part of the process for ascension, where souls that are they're trying to be in God's leadership, if you will, or people who are just trying to rise above the chaos and trying to be helpful and raising the collective vibration of our planet. That they have to go through these different initiations where you have to deal with like mental, you have to get over any type of negative mental space, which I did. That was part of the process. But there was like all these different things. There are levels, and so you have to go through all these tests, and they're not pleasant. In fact, this last one, the one I'm in right now, is absolutely brutal and it's horrible. But it's part of the system, and you know, if you're going to change the system or be effective as a leader or as a participant in something global, then you have to understand that you have to experience what's going on, and you can't shortcut shit. And so I showed up at this place, and it is pretty much what I would consider hell on earth. It's very super oppressive. I already shared in a video yesterday, I believe it was, what was going on, which is part of the initiations towards the end here is all of my greatest fears. And so I had already overcome all of them during that initial process, but I have 2 buttons left. And one is I don't do people infringing on my right with loud music and like the constant like sound of music and stuff invading my privacy, for especially someone as very spiritual as I am, it drives me nuts, right? But I don't infringe on their rights because it's not like It's not like they're intentionally doing it, and this person is actually trying to be polite about it. But it's a personal hell to me, and that's what the divine is pushing, is that button. It's pushing that one button. And they have a 5 p.m. curfew, so it's not as if you can get a job, because if you get a job, then you have to report you have to give them all of the information. They have to call the employer. They have to verify that you stay here and that you have to be home at a certain time and that you can't do this and you can't. And I was like, oh, fuck that shit. And so it was very oppressive. And then everybody here is super angry and very, very sad, complete opposite of where I just left. And what it boils down to is that none of these places are run universally. There's no like district manager that goes from location to location to location, making sure that everything is streamlined. So they can do whatever the fuck they want. And so like a corrupt place, even though I don't think like it's any one person doing it, it's like this place is just, it's not run very well. And I can say that, I don't care. They can push as hard as they want. I don't work for them. But I'm just trying to help the collective understand what it is to be in these situations. And, you know, I can walk out of here at any time. The divine always tells me that. The divine says, you can leave at any fucking moment you want to. It's not like that. But, you know, and it's always reassuring. But the thing is, I agreed to this mission, and I'm not going to stop just because it's uncomfortable. But having said that, I also have to say the truth. And so, like, I'm ready to deal with the repercussions of it. So don't worry about that part. But it was so oppressive to me, and it just took, it blindsided me. It took me off of my game because of the fact that I knew that I was entering a reward cycle for finishing my part of the process, and I was going into my mission, which is what I'm going to get into now. But it really hurt my soul. It didn't hurt me, it hurt my soul. And my soul just freaked. Like, because it was like the worst possible scenario, right? Because on top of it, the beds behind me were both broken. And instead of treating me like a human being, they made me sleep on the floor for 5 days. And they kept treating me like I was lying. And they wouldn't even bother to look. And so I had gone from being treated as human to being subhuman. And to be like a piece of shit. And so, because of the music and stuff like that, once they finally finished fixing the bed, which took them 5 days, I finally slept on the bed, and then the music wouldn't stop. So, it was driving me nuts between the two. And so I ended up making a little shift safe spot in the bathroom on the ground. And believe it or not, it brought my energies back. And I'm not saying that it's the most wonderful experience to be like, you know, a piece of shit on the ground and having to sleep in the bathroom, but it's my power back. It's me taking a bad situation and rising above it and going, okay, you know what? That's a clean bathroom. It's inside. I'm attitude of gratitude. I'm going to be grateful for my life. I'm going to be grateful for the fact I have food. I'm going to be grateful for the lessons I'm learning. And I'm going to be grateful that this is the absolute worst that it will ever be in my life. Because I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of any of that other stuff that I already overcame. I just didn't want to backslide. Like, I felt like I was being personally penalized. And it's part of the initiations. I mean, like I said, this last initiation, guys, like, don't kid yourself, you know. It's brutal. It's your worst nightmare. It's not anyone else's. You know, like I told the example in yesterday's video, I'm like, I could have bombs going off because that's what was happening at the transitional house. It was in South Central during 4th of July. So they were throwing those big bomb ones, the ones that turn on car alarms, and they were throwing it at my feet. And so I'd be walking, and they would just go off, and I wasn't reacting. So I have no reaction to that. But this, like that silent, annoying, constant noise in the background thing, gets to me, right? And so it's not the guy's fault, so I'm trying to hold my own. So just know that when you get to the initiations, it's not going to be a bed of roses. And it's going to really, it pushed me to the brink of my own sanity, I'll put it that way. Because I had gotten to a place where I had overcome so much. And I had looked at my life and had let go of so much negative mental space and woe is me victimization. I had let it all go, but this just was too oppressive for me. And then on top of it, I have all the energy from all of the other people who are staying here are equally under the same oppression, and it just was too much. And so it pushed my brain to the brink. And so in the process, this morning I woke up and my guides were very, very clear. They were like I'm not a big Disney person anymore, like I'm just not, but they were like, you know, like very Snow White, Cinderella, and I was like, could you please not refer to me as Cinderella? Like, can I be Cinder fucking Fella? Like, you know, like something like that. Because, you know, I'm okay with the divine feminine aspect, but I don't need to be called Cinderella. And so I was like I'm still in that kind of way. And so they, you know, they were charming and very cutesy. And so if you guys don't know what spirituality and the spiritual circles are, because some of us are very heavily Catholic and some of us are very heavily Jewish, whatever our predominant faith is, and so we get lost in what that indoctrination is, that we forget that there are spiritual people who actually serve God that are free agents. They exist on missions specifically sent by God to do specific things. And so if you guys understand spirituality, you understand that all of us here have purpose. Every soul has purpose. I have purpose, you have purpose, everybody has purpose. And so what we're supposed to remember is who we are and how we fit into the grand scheme of the grand design, the divine design. And how that plays out is primarily effective only if we remember who we are and step into those roles. And so part of the process is, on top of your normal life, in adapting to materialism and adapting to all of the vicious things that are our plights, the crosses that we each bear in Christ consciousness, we have to overcome them and step into our power after that and stand as beacons of light and hold the tent up while other people join you, right? That's the whole point. Well, mine is it's a lot bigger than I initially thought it was. But in order to reach that level of ascension, in order to hold that tent up high enough, you sometimes have to be pushed to the brink of sanity. And so I was in the middle of this initiation. So this morning I woke up, and they were very Disney-esque with me, and it was really super sweet, but I was in what I would call the interdimensional portal, where, if you don't know, you start to feel like a little bit airy and a little bit lightheaded, and you're just kind of like, okay, something's not right here, but you're not in danger. You're like actually being almost lightened up. And I swear to you, it's when it dawned on me that that they started to manifest right here, and I started to feel like there was something coming out of my back, like springing out. And I was like, okay, now I've lost it. You guys have fucking managed to make me lose my mind. And, my guides, who are very super powerful energies, are just giggling, essentially, right? And so I'm going through my day, and everything's lighter, everything's brighter, and suddenly there came a moment where I was confronted with something very interesting, and it was a very clear message that said, today you're going to state who you are and what you're doing on this planet. And you're going to say it without shame, and it's going to sound crazy to everybody else, but it doesn't matter. The people you are speaking to will know you the moment you say this. And that's what this is. So, my name is Alvaro Arevalo. I am the son of Claudia Maria Arevalo, and I am a descendant of Francisco Marroquin, the first Archbishop of Guatemala. Not only am I apparently related to him, but I am actually his reincarnation. How do I know that? Both he and I have the exact same past. We both work for the divine. We both have the same mission, which is to build schools and to bring the vibration up for the collective. We both make sure that we don't suppress and that we bring everybody up. And we both have had the exact same mission all of these hundreds of years apart from each other. We are one and the same. The fact that I remember that is that I have not finished whatever I was working on, that he was working on. And so my task now is to explain to you what my life purpose is. I have a friend, an energy that you all know very clearly, that is an energy that I've worked for I think it's 3 lifetimes now. And my life path is to find the souls that represent that energy incarnate that got lost in the worst possible ways. This land of illusion we call life is very, very dark. And we as souls are supposed to remember who we are and remind ourselves how to get back out of it, right? To get our power back. Once we understand our soul worth, like Christ said, like Jesus said, when you pay for the sins of not just yourself, but you take accountability for that of humanities, then you ascend back into the heavens, right? You return to God. And so there are souls here that are incredibly innocent, that are meant to do great things. They're what we would call the chosen. And my path is to not only find them, but to hear them out and to hear them throughout the space. And it's a very cosmic thing that's very strange to kind of wrap your head around. Here comes the music. So in a minute, I'm probably going to cut off and go to my little bathroom space. But the point is that my task is to not only hear them and hear their truth, but find them and find a way to guide them back from wherever they've disconnected, and bring them back into the light. And that's pretty big thing to do. And so I'm not stating it like out of ego, it's just what they're asking me to specifically state. And so my energy has been, up until now, very much driven on mastering the self part, right? Mastery is the moment where we as souls master the physical incarnation and are able to then proceed into the higher realms. Well, the higher realms are now coming down to meet us. And just so you know, it's not like it's just me. There are even bigger, more important souls throughout all of our cosmos, currently incarnation, that are the chosen ones. And these are people who are already masters. I'm going to be very honest, including possibly even Christ, the Buddha. There are a lot of very powerful souls that are reincarnated at this time to make the collective make this transition. And my friend, this energy that I'm here personally helping, is specifically in a space where it's starting to not see the love back. It's starting to feel only the oppressive, negative, materialistic, ego-driven, self-centered behavior that we get wrapped up to in this illusion. And so the balance has been shifted incorrectly. And so we're at a crossroads where humanity will either succeed or it will tank itself. And so my mission is to come in and find those people who are innocent, who have been brutalized beyond repair to others, and people who have been raped and beaten, and people who have been pushed to the bridge of insanity. And I'm supposed to find them and guide them back before last call. And it's up to the humanity whether or not they decide to snap out of this bullshit of self-centered behavior, of worrying about what other, into jealousy and all of this hate and all of this ego stuff, and realize that the divine created you perfectly in his image, her image. And the energy that belongs to is now in a situation where it's feeling all of the drag down. It's not feeling any of the reward. So part of our task is to help the angels, archangels who are incarnate here, that are helping find these people and bring those light beings back out so that God can take them and heal them because they are broken. And let me give you an example. And this is what they're asking me to do. And this is like ridiculously so uncomfortable for me, but I'm going to do what they ask me to do. My name is Al. I was born in the South in the 1970s to a single Hispanic mother as a bastard son with no one claimed me other than my mom. We struggled a lot in my life. We had to pull our family together within 3 generations, but we did it. My cousin and I have never had easy lives. In fact, I would say that karmically speaking, we did something really bad possibly in the last lifetime. That would be the illusion. And by the time I was 7, I was raped by a man who emulated the picture of Jesus Christ from the 70s, wore a V-neck, long hair, goatee, the whole look, and it put me on a path against God, which is who I was here to serve. And it derailed the future I was supposed to have. And what it did is it sent me down looking for a life of service, that somewhere I could help humanity, which was my calling. And it led me right into a cult by the time I was 12 years old that brutalized me and abused me and enslaved me. I'm not going to say what cult it is because, people that I love are still attached to that and they don't see the truth of that place. And so I'm not going to bring them out of that now. The point is that I had to run, and I almost lost my mom in the process, and she was the only family I really had at that point. I was on my own, and I had been broken so severely that I didn't think I would be able to survive it. And so I thought about suicide, but it was very clear that that was not allowed. And so I found salvation in sexual addiction and drug addiction, and I began looking for the comfort in other people and validation through men. And I did so not necessarily out of sex, because that was easy. That's just self-gratification. I can do that on my own, and quicker and probably more effectively. But the point is that I had to go through that process because what I was seeking was knowledge. I was seeking for expansive, intelligent conversations, things that I wasn't necessarily getting because I'd shut down in my personal life, and I was very, very, I'd been cornered and I'd been broken. And so this was getting me out of my shell. And so lo and behold, the only way to shock me out of this was that my mom died. And she died by the time I was 25. And that was my greatest fear on this planet. And that destroyed me. That was the moment where my soul fractured. And it was meant to. It was by design. Like I said, life isn't always nice. But you when you're meant to rise above it, you will. And so I encountered it by becoming even more sexually active and even more drug addicted, and I got lost in the world of drugs for a long time. And I became a functioning addict, and I was close to many times of dying and to really, falling short of my mission. And my soul was desperately trying to get me to snap out of it. So I call her she because sometimes I just look at my soul and I'm just like, dude, you're not a dude, you're a girl. And so I ended up, she talked me into leaving Los Angeles after 22 years. And my stepfather, of course, chose the church over me, and which is, of course, his own right. And I don't have any ill will for him, but it left me orphaned and by myself. And I kind of I became that wounded warrior that we hear of in the heavens. And so I wasn't able to heal the wounds. So the best thing to do was to get me out of Dodge. And so I moved to New Orleans, and I thought that being with my family would be the right thing, and that was a complete disaster. And I cried for about 2 months every day, my poor ex. And I made it through it though, and one of the things that I had was that I became also a heavy drinker then in New Orleans, because that's something you do there. And so the only way to break me of that was the idea that I would become part of the industry and that I would stop drinking. And sure enough, I did. I started off as a busser. Now remember that I had been a client service manager, director. I'd been all of these wonderful titles in Los Angeles, and so for me to go that far down was a ego death. And I did it, and I was quite proud of it, actually. And I started off as a busser for like, $5 an hour, and I did okay. But the problem is I would walk 2 miles to the ferry to cross, and then 2 miles back every night on top of my normal shift, so I was exhausted. So I finally made the brave move of becoming a bartender, and I wasn't just a bartender, but I was one of the best bartenders at one of the best chains in New Orleans. And I'm not going to put the name out there, but they know who they are, and it's a secret drink. But the point is that we were the best, and I did very well. But I also started back with the drugs because I'd stopped in New Orleans for about 7 years, and then my body couldn't handle it anymore. And so I started using drugs again in order to make it. And so one day what happened was that my body started to give out. And so I had a choice. Either I would quit drinking or I'd quit drugs. And so I chose I quit drinking, and I cold turkeyed it, which is stupid. You should never do that without consulting a doctor. And my kidneys started to shut down, and I almost died. And so in the process, I lost that job. And so everything came crashing down as it was meant to. It's a tower moment. And what ended up happening is I became a functioning addict, where I would do meth every day. Every day. No one noticed. No one knew. If anything, I looked a little flighty from time to time, but I was on point and never late and all that stuff, and I did what I was supposed to do. And my soul just got to a point where it was just like, okay, this is a do or die moment. And so I became very reclusive because I felt betrayed by the fact that I lost my job over something I couldn't handle. It was my body. And so I was starting to self-implode. And so as that happened, I came to a moment one day where my soul talked to me. I didn't want to go out. I really had become so reclusive, and so just like I would rather just stay at home and not see anybody. And so she talked me into going to see my best friend Miles and Leah one night. And so I went out to the quota, and I had a good time. And it was a good dose of medicine. I drank a little bit. Like I don't drink anymore, but I drank like 2 drinks that night, and so I was a little tipsy, and I was happy. And I was on my way home. I had quit drinking altogether by this point, obviously, and so the 2 drinks. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go home. And so on the way home, I was about not even half a block from my house. 2 men grabbed me, put a gun to the back of my head, put me into a ditch, and pulled the trigger in the back of my spine. And in that moment, I remember specifically saying, "Oh, thank God." And I don't think I had ever said it out loud, because I think at the point, you're like, who says that to themselves? Nobody ever says that to themselves. And I didn't have anybody that I was close to that I would say that to, so it just seemed kind of weird for me to say it. I don't think my soul had ever heard me say it. And so I don't know if it was the fact that I was grateful, and they didn't know what I was grateful for, because it wasn't like I was grateful to be dying. It was more like I was just grateful in general, because I had never taken my life for granted. I'm not one of those people who blames other people for my life. I am perfectly willing to admit that I put myself in all these situations. And so it threw things into a little bit of a strange moment. So in that split-second decision where I said, oh, thank God, I closed my eyes, and he pulled the trigger, and I ended up in a room. I call him the Beastly. And it was all black. I couldn't see anything. I knew I had died. And I'm just staring, and I'm just like, and I could feel the dark breath of you-know-who standing right behind my neck. And I'm assuming he was about to take my neck, and I would be pulled into hell. And I couldn't care less. I honestly looked at it like this. I was like, after the life that I've lived and everything I've been through, we'll be fine. And so instead, I'm still breathing, like I could feel like drool essentially right here. And I remember that thing in the mythology about the guy who went and got his girlfriend, or his wife or whatever, and he went into hell, and they said, you can have her, but only if you promise me that you will not turn and look at her before you exit hell. So that was where my head was at. And so in the darkness of black, I could see like a faint little gray line. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was a combination, but my soul knew something about it. And so I swear to you, I jumped into that little gray light. And I was back on the ground. This time, I guess the gun had jammed because I know it was pulled. But now I'm in the ground. They're a full block down the street from me. They had taken off my shoes. They had taken my wallet and my phone. In the split second, that would have been the variation between consciousness and non-consciousness. And they're jumping in their car and they're taking off. And I was fucking pissed. And when I say that I was walking back to the quarter to my best friend at the time, who had the key, extra key, in case of an emergency. I could feel the anger pulling energy from every location as I passed it, and I was like tugging, because it wasn't just anger, it had turned to hatred, and I was hating everything, and I was pulling so much that it must have done something to my world, because when I got there, this friend of mine, who was my best friend in the whole wide world, and I loved to death, he and I would have the most vicious fight on that same night, and I will never forgive. It just turned my life upside down, and so what I did have was gone, and I was immediately thrown into a dark night of the soul journey. Now, for those of you who don't know what a dark night of the soul journey is, it's with the period where you are basically forsaken truly by God. And what it is that it is a test of faith. You must prove yourself worthy of the life that you're leading by being forsaken and actually having no one to help you. Everybody would turn their back on you, and you would be left to die. And you would have to make that journey on faith alone. That was it. And I didn't know that. I just knew that my life was even shittier than when I had died. And so I was very angry and bitter. And my soul finally got a hold of me at that point, and that's where I started to build. That was the path. That was what God was asking of me, and it was to get me back. And I hadn't realized how close I am to that energy that we call God, the divine source or whatnot. But apparently we're pretty close friends, if you will, in the way that someone who creates something out of nothing creates something specifically in each of us, right? So every time that I look at you, I'm looking at God looking back at me. In the same way that when you look at a tree, I see God in that tree. Because God literally created, or source, whatever you want to call it, designed us perfectly in what they wanted us to be. And it's up to us to remember who that is and stand in that power and then move forward. But I didn't remember that at the time. I was so lost in the illusion. And it was truly this whole lifetime, now that I'm out of it, or that I'm on the verge of exiting that part of the process, it was a whole lifetime of a dark night of the soul. And it's because of the mission that I now have. Because it was designed to push me to the brink of madness, to the brink of where I was truly going to get lost here. That was the danger of this whole mission for this lifetime, was that I was going to be pushed to the very darkest edges of reality because of the mission that would unfold if I made it. But I am someone that has worked for the divine for a long time, and this was a big gamble on the cosmos side. And I didn't realize I was important. I just thought, shit, I thought I was like the worst thing in the fucking world. Like, I just thought that, like, even my family didn't want me. Like, I was just forsaken, and so there was nothing I could do at the time. And so, but luckily, the dark night of the soul is very much all about spirituality. And so, all of a sudden, all of these really wonderful energies started to kind of come towards me, and my guides right there. Like, I didn't have one. I had 3 fucking guides from the get-go. And they were like, okay, he's here. And they started, like, it was like this weird thing in my head, and I was like, okay, I'm losing it. And so I thought I was breaking with reality. I was like, all right, well, you know what? Nobody gives a shit. I'm going to just go roll with it. So I'm going to commit. And so I committed to my path, and I started to discover that there's no one at the time. This was like about 5 years ago. There's no one really talking about it. It was kind of like all hush-hush. And it was kind of innuendo, and it was kind of addressed during like psychic readings and stuff like that on like YouTube and stuff, but it wasn't like really heavily known, right? It wasn't like we understand now the collective consciousness. The people like in my group, the first wavers, are the ones who set that up, and we didn't know that we were setting up, but our stories have managed to make their way out into the world, and so now everybody knows what the collective consciousness is and the movement towards it. But at the time this was all starting, I didn't know. And so it pitted me against the one religious person I had as a friend who I felt an ally to, because I knew that I started to get the impression that I was on a mission, and there was something specific about my life path. Why would I be so put upon? Like, what was it that I had done? And so it made me go into a search with true spirituality and find God. And God was very clear. You must remember who you are. You have to get through this illusion. And so I trusted this, and so of course it was like 2 enemies, right, immediately. So I had to cut that person out of my life. And so then I was truly by myself. And I'm telling you all of this because all of you are going through variations of this shit right now. And so it's very important for you to understand that when I step forward in this moment and what they're asking me to do, it isn't out of ego. It's so that you understand the level of brutality or the level of despair that I was in, so that you can take that and realize, hey, he made it. He did it. He did, and he's still in the last initiation or whatever fucking initiation, because I don't pretend to know everything. I'm kind of making my way. But I know that my mission has become crystal clear, and that I've gotten the green light, and that's why this is so important, and why they're asking me to do this so publicly. Is because a lot of you look at me, and you worry that I'm disconnected, or that you worry that I'm this, or don't worry about me. I've survived things that you can't possibly imagine. Rape, victimization, brutality, things that you don't need to know. But just look into my eyes and see that I have the key to those. And I know how to reach the people who are suffering in those places. And to just trust me from this moment on and knowing what I'm talking about. Because they need us. The collective race of humanity is in danger. We have lost sight of the fact that we are created by the divine universe for reasons that we may not consciously be aware of just yet. But we're on the verge, this fucking close, to really discovering our truth. Where we come from, who created us, because it's not just the divine. There's another element here that's about to shock the fuck out of all y'all. And there are all these truths that surround our energy. And they're all in my psychic, like they're all like right here in my face. But I can't do anything about it until we start to work together, instead of working against each other. And so I was in the dark night of the soul, and I was trapped in there for a long time. And it kept getting more aggressive. It was like it wasn't like it was an easy path. Just because you discovered the truth of you doesn't mean that you still have to fucking walk the walk. And so by the time that I got out of the dark night of the soul, I didn't realize that I was immediately ushered into the awakening process. I mean, it wasn't even like I had a breath. It was like literally I woke up and I realized what was going on. And I was like, oh shit. And all of a sudden I was like, oh fuck, now I'm into awaken. And I was like, then immediately started all of this other stuff. And then immediately I was put into the initiations. And then now I'm in the initiation. It's just been one thing back. It was like dominoes that had to go really, really quickly because of the fact that we were running out of time. And so the people that I am working with, that I'm supposed to be working with, that we are all being pushed very, very at incredible amounts of speed through a lot of dark stuff that we have to get through. Sorry, truth. Whenever I speak to certain truths, like I, for some reason, err. By the way, here, FYI, for those of you who are ascending, just know you need to be near a bathroom. I'm just going to fucking put that out there because part of the dark night of the soul, or part of one of the initiations that I was awakening in, was in COVID. And there was no bathrooms, but because I was going through so much shit and I was dropping so much baggage that it literally was manifesting where I was literally having to go to the bathroom. It was hell on earth. I'm just putting that out there. So just know if you're suddenly like going through hell, but you're making sense of shit and you're all feeling weird, but you don't understand, but you're going to the bathroom a lot, you're cleansing. Good work for you. So anyway, the moral story is, so I'm in this situation and I'm trying to make sense of all of this. And and the problem, or not the problem, but the truth of life is that no two souls are made the same way. In fact, all of us are specifically engineered manifestations from source creation that is running queries through us. So each of us has specific end things that we need to accomplish and things that we're supposed to learn and experience so that we can bring that information back at the end of our cycle and go up to source, and source goes, oh, okay, so we don't have to do that again. No, we don't. The problem is that we're getting lost in the illusion, so the information keeps having to be repeated. So that's why my mission is so clear now. And so anyway, the moral story is, so then I was going through all of this stuff and I was lost by myself and nobody was talking about it. But the more that I started to go through it and be very vocal about it, and I wrote books on it, nobody read it, but I wrote it anyway, and it anchored the energy into reality, right, into what we consider reality. And remember, the mission is to bring the fifth dimension and the third dimension into alignment with each other. That's part of this is adjustment. And so that process requires that we document and that we share, and what it does is it starts to pool energy, it starts to bring energy and force towards each other, and manifestations, boom, magician work, like all that stuff. Now magician like pagan, because Catholics get all up my ass about this. We're all on the same team. You can try to divide us as much as you want just because I'm not reading your specific doctrine. Your specific doctrine has omissions, and you know it. There are things that are lied upon in those texts that fuck everything up. So until you're willing to tell the truth, don't come at me. I'm not the one lying. I can tell you exactly what is true and what's not true. That's one of the gifts the divine gave us. Is people who see it, and we're not like judging you. We're letting you do your thing, and we're not trying to take anything from you. But don't come at me with your bullshit, because you're making things worse for humanity. You're not helping. So either step up and cut the shit and start doing your part in your religion with your people, and step up to your plate. But stop coming at the rest of us who are trying to just cope with all of the different bullshit parts that are not real. And it's really hard to say stuff like that because I definitely, I don't have any problem with, the Pope or anybody in the Catholic Church. I actually respect them. And I'm actually rooting for them, but I can't do anything on my own. They have their own leadership. They have their own people. They have their own connections to source. That's not my gig. My gig is this, right? And so I'm dealing with all of this, and I'm just an individual person. And of course, I look like shit. I'm at the time I was still a bartender, and so I was going through all this stuff. And the world would never have seen me for the truth of who I am, because the world doesn't want to see people in truth. They want to see people in whatever materialistic baggage, bullshit, ego thing that they have going on. So you can typically become someone else's reflection of the shadow. So that's what they were seeing. So I couldn't break through that, and I wasn't about to try. And I started just working on myself. And so finally I got to a point where I got to a place of empowerment. But what I wasn't able to do is I don't have an ego. I have an ego, but I don't have an unhealthy ego. In fact, it's really, I guess it's unhealthy in the under ego. I don't like a lot of attention. I don't like, I know I do some things well, but I don't boast about things. I don't like conflict as far as like people who are supposed to be working together in teams and stuff like that. Like, it just annoys me, but not in a negative way. It's just like, I just kind of go, it's just people. I'm not going to try to change them. I can't. But I'm not the type that's all gloaty. Like, I'm a Cancer moon, Leo rising, but the Leo rising is like in the back, right? And so it's kind of funny that all of this is now happening on a Leo rising moon, right? It's a Leo moon. I'm telling you, there's no coincidences on this planet. But anyway, so I'm going through all of this, and so I get to a place where the divine is like, you need to step up into this role. You need to step up into leadership. I wasn't liking what I was seeing. And so I was very clear with the divine, and this is a little bit pompous on my part, and I admit it. I was like, I'm not leading people like this. They're arguing with each other. They're being all egoish. They're sitting there arguing with each other. It's all competitive. I'm not trying to get involved in that shit. That's drama. I'm not dealing with that fucking drama. And I really kind of said it's that way. The one thing about my relationship with the divine is that I have never been dishonest with the divine. When I do something wrong, or if I have faults, I own them, and I'm trying to work through them, and the divine's okay with that. So don't think of it like I was just being nasty to him. I was just saying like I normally would say anything. I've gotten fired from jobs for how honest I am. Like, I'm not going to lie. And so I was like, I'm not interested. I'm just going to let that go. I will wait for the next opportunity. Not the right thing to say to the divine. So, hence, that's what happened with all of this, where I got thrown into a situation where now I'm going through the last of initiations. I have this guy that just won't stop with the music. I have a situation where I'm sleeping on the ground in the bathroom and all this stuff, in order to strengthen my conviction that I am worthy of whatever this is all about. But in order to push me to this point where I would post a video that literally says everything that y'all need to know about me, in order to say what I'm about to say, had to happen by pushing me to the absolute brink of sanity. And so what I'm saying to you all is that when you get to these situations, that is the perfect time to look at someone like me and go, yeah, I'm not crazy. You know, he's going through it, and some of you have it even worse than I do. He's right. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. I don't know how we're going to make it, but we're going to make it. And you tell your soul, and you and your soul, by the point that you're in the initiations, you should be aligned with your soul, right? The initiations are when you're disconnected, you are the lower expression separate from the soul. Then at some point in the initiations, usually around the first or second, you become one with the soul, and you absorb into the soul, where the soul takes over again, for over the physical expression. And then you have to go through the test to go with that part. And then when you reach usually about the third initiation, you're now at the point where you are absorbing into God, and God is taking back over. And then that's typically where you drop the body. But because of Ascension, and because of the big mission that everybody's on right now, which is trying to get the collective into the right alignment to help the whole planet and that stuff, all of the stuff that a lot of people are like, oh, it's bullshit. Well, you can say that, but you are watching the world come crashing down around you. And so the longer you deny the truth of what's going on around you, the harder it's going to be for you. Because you're going to have to make all of the transitions that I've made over the course of the last, 10 years? 6 years? You're going to have to make it in a year at the rate we're going. So stop. Open yourself up to the fact that what we thought was true is not always true. And start asking yourself what speaks to your truth. Because the longer you delay this, the harsher this is going to be. Like, it's going to be super nasty, right? And a lot of people aren't going to make it. The longer you wait, the more likely you're not going to be able to snap out of it. The illusion, right? And that's not me being negative. That's just the truth. Because right now we're on the second wave. This is the second wave of people being awakened. And so that's who I'm trying to reach. So, in the situation where I was at, where I couldn't breathe anymore, I was just so oppressed and all that stuff, I actually started to listen to music. And so music is super key because it raises your vibration, it can influence you, it can make you do things that are kind of funny. And so just remember that there are things that are around you that are built to help you. And the more that you lean into lean into it, the more than likely you're going to empower yourself and be able to step into your role and into your power, and you're going to remember who you are and what you're here to do. So the revelation that came to me finally through all of this last I call this Hell Week. Like this last initiation I'm in right now is what I would call the epitome of a fraternity Hell Week, where like it's all of my buttons being pushed on me and like really trying to destroy my energy and trying to conform me or change me into something else. But what I won't do is give away my soul or I have an inner child that I treat like it's gold. It is something that God gave me and something God gives each of you out there in the world. It's the inner essence of your truth. It's the sincerity, the sweetness, the love, the unpenetrable devotion for humanity that you won't give away. And so that's who I'm protecting at all costs. And so as I'm going through Hell Week, it finally became very clear to me that the reason I'm being extra pushed upon is because my task really is to find these people who have along the way gotten lost in the illusions that are meant to come out of it. And in order to do that, it's a team. There are teams on this planet that each have different tasks. Angels are here, I'm just going to tell you straight up, including Michael and Gabriel, are all here. And they're all working on helping humanity just rise above the chaos, because it's an illusion. This is all illusions. We are the shadow side of creation and free will and freedom. With those two things comes a lot of shadows that we have to get through. And so what was revealed to me in my process, and what I'm now on mission task for now, is that I'm to put that in front of the world in a way that is somehow universally appealing, which I'm like, me? All right, we're going to try this out. But essentially what it is I'm supposed to show and speak their names and find these people and find them throughout history, people who have really suffered some shit that we probably couldn't ever possibly deal with. And like in alignment with like Christ's crucifixion, where it was like really heinous and things that we as the moral majority allowed to play out and didn't help out in. And remember who they are, tell their story, put that out into the world and talk about how faith got them through it. And if they didn't, then speak their name so that legacy ends that cycle. Because what I'm seeing happening as it's been revealed to me is that the longer that we don't deal with these shadows in public ways, the longer we keep perpetuating the need for them to keep being played out and getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And the longer that we keep denying that they exist, the harder that some soul, our brothers and sisters, are going to have to pay that cost. And I refuse to let that happen, considering I've already been through a lot. And so I have to now find a way to band us as humanity together and kind of put my shit out there and let you all judge me and make fun of me and all that stuff, and I'm down with that. That's cool. I'm not going to be affected by it, because at the end of the day, I will succeed at my mission. But what I'm trying to say to you all is that all of you have beautiful gifts that you may not know yet because of how much you've been oppressed, right? It's not just that the system is corrupt, because it's from all sides. If I'm going through this and I'm on the side of light, then there's some negative aspects to divine structure as well that need to be worked out. And the same is true for everything. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And that's the biggest truth you need to know going into this. Don't blank statement anything, because you don't know till you're there. And then when it's revealed to you, then you have to really, really figure it out. And so if you think you know everything, then you block yourself from seeing the truth of the reality. And so the task now is to let you all hear this. For those of you that's supposed to reach, it will click immediately and you will know. And for those of you who want to make fun, go right ahead. I'm down. I support you in everything that you do. I really do. I think that that's really healthy for you to do that, because at some point karma will snap you out of it. And so whatever it takes to get you into the right place, to open yourself up to God, the divine source, whatever you want to call it, who is desperately trying to tell you, this is it. This is it for humanity. You have a choice. Either you're going to be part of the solution and you're going to help humanity come back together in order to make this transition in union with the divine, or you're going to all pay the penalty together and it's going to go to hell. Okay? So those are the options you have. And that's not like all scary. You know that something's going on. There are people dropping left and right, people who are not making the alignment, things that are just going wrong, people who are just tired, the elderly, who can't make it physically to do this alignment. So you're lucky to even have the opportunity to try. So just know that as far as the universe is concerned, we may be going through hell, but you are lucky to be alive. There is energy and souls that have never incarnated who are dying to get on this planet to do something. So enough with the hee-haw, moo-moo, let the world go. There are people who truly are in jeopardy, who are going through absolute hell, that we're all clouding the energy around them so we can't see them, because we're all like, oh, well, I didn't get my promotion. Oh, well, he cheated on me. Meanwhile, I've been fucking his brother. Like, ugh. You know what I mean? I'm trying not to be all judgy, but it's like, and I really don't care if you do it, but it's like you're just clouding, you're not facing your own reality. And so the longer that we are separate and we stop, the longer we're fighting with each other, the harder it is for the divine and the angels and the others that are here that are trying to do God's work to do it. And it's time that somebody said that to you guys. Like, it's the truth. Because I've never had the luxury of blaming anyone else for my life path, ever. So I don't really understand this whole thing where people don't get the responsibility. I've never had that luxury. So it's now at the point where I'm getting a lot of shit, and I can handle it. But it's at some point I'm just going to be like, here's your shit. Here you go. What are you going to do now? At some point you can't keep blaming anybody else. You end up in a ditch no matter what. And I've been put specifically in a ditch over and over and over again to see if it'll break me. And so I'm looking at some of you, and you're purposely driving your own cars into ditches, and here I am, and I can't get out of this. And then I'm looking at it, I'm going, oh, I guess that's the lesson, isn't it? The lesson is to be very direct. If I can't say what we need to do, then I can't lead anything. And it's not like I'm alone. I mean, there's Jesus, and there's all these other masters who are way above me, who are just waiting for us to find that group consensus of people who are willing to take accountability for the collective and try to steer this thing. And then they're going to show up. So don't wait to be surprised, because by that point, then it's going to be everybody but you who goes. And so that's kind of what I just wanted to say. And I'm just going to leave it like this. They're just specifically telling me that I was supposed to do an hour. I did an hour. I feel like I just went on stage, which is kind of funny. I'm sweating a little bit because I'm not used to like having to put all of my laundry out there. And I know I'm going to get flack for it. And I'm you know what? Bring it on. Because at the end of the day, just so you know, as an ascender, energy is still energy. It's up to the recipient what it does with that energy. So you can send as much negativity as you want my way, because I have the ability to alchemize it. But I had to be pushed to this initiation, this hell week that I'm in right now. And for whatever reason, this all had to happen, and for whatever reason, on Sunday. I don't ask questions anymore, I just go with the flow. But having said that, my mission, for those of you who are interested, and for those of you who are part of this, because I see a lot of really powerful souls out there, I want to just immediately kind of shout out a couple people, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to like attach them to whatever if I get any backlash. But there are souls out on the internet, especially, that are incredibly powerful beings that are also on their own mission, doing their own work that is helping alchemize and helping the world find their better place. There are, of course, idols like Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry, who all have literally amassed an unbelievable ability to bring the world forward and up. So we're moving towards that direction. So I want to just, those are the two I can give a shout out because they're public figures. But there are others that are kind of a little bit on a lower scale, but that are equally as powerful, that are doing the same work. So my task, my mission, and my group specifically has to do with finding and identifying those souls that have gotten lost along their path, that are super oppressed or have been raped or victimized or brutalized, that have just fractured out of reality. And I'm supposed to hear their truth in their story, and I'm supposed to find them and show the world what that looks like, and then bring them slowly out with you guys, helping in order to kind of balance the energy so that they feel heard. At the end of the day, my mission is to find souls and have them heard by the collective. Because once we hear their powerful story, then those stories don't have to keep being relived. And so we start to alleviate the shadow, and the shadow starts to go away because we've dealt with it, we've looked at it, we've acknowledged it, and we've said thank you to the souls that actually came down here to pave the way for the rest of us. That is my mission. That is what Arevalo, Álvaro Arevalo, son of Claudia María Arevalo, hijo de Maruca del Carmen Marroquín Caballeros, hija de Francisco Marroquín María Caballeros y Francisco Marroquín. That's what my family DNA is here to do. And that's what I plan on doing successfully. So that is what we're up to. That is my story. I hope that somehow is of service to somebody out there in the universe. I don't know exactly how this all works out. I don't know why I had to put it so public. I wish I could say it's liberating, but if anything, I just feel it just feels like the right thing to have done. And so I hope it's received that way. My guides are giddy right at the moment. There's a lightness to my back right now. I don't know, I swear to you, it's like something's like right here. Anyway, moral story is, there's an energy called the source, divine, Allah, God, whatever you want to call it, who needs to see the beauty in us, in the way that it created each and every one of us, and they need to see us put down the hatred, put down the bigotry, put down the jealousy, put down all of the nasty elements that make us who we are, and they need to start seeing humanity rise and start helping each other and start loving each other. Because every time that you look at one of these people that you are being vindictive of or hurting, you are doing that to God. And my friend needs help right now. They're feeling the strain, and so we're here to make sure that stops. That's it for me, guys. I hope you guys have a blessed day. I'll see you guys later.